The Theory of Political Economy by William Stanley Jevons. Chapter 7 Theory of Capital. Part 14 Tendency of Profits to a Minimum. It is one of the favorite doctrines of economists since the time of Adam Smith, that as society progresses and capital accumulates, the rate of profit, or more strictly speaking, the rate of interest, tends to fall. The rate will always ultimately sink so low, they think, that the inducements to further accumulation will cease. This doctrine is in striking agreement with the result of the somewhat abstract analytical investigation given above. Our formula for the rate of interest shows that unless there be constant progress in the arts, the rate must tend to sink towards zero, supposing accumulation of capital to go on. There are sufficient statistical facts, too, to confirm this conclusion historically. The only question that can arise is as to the actual cause of this tendency. Adam Smith vaguely attributed it to the competition of capitalists, saying the increase of stock which raises wages tends to lower profit. When the stocks of many rich merchants are turned into the same trade, their mutual competition naturally tends to lower its profit. And when there is a like increase of stock in all the different trades carried on in the same society, the same competition must produce the same effect in them all. Later, economists have entertained different views. They attributed the fall of interest to the rise in the cost of labor. The produce of labor, they said, is divided between capitalists and laborers, and if it is necessary to give more to labor, there must be less left to capital, and the rate of profit will fall. I shall discuss the validity of this theory in the final chapter, and will only remark here that it is not in agreement with the view which I have ventured to take concerning the origin of interest. I consider that the interest is determined by the increment of produce which it enables a laborer to obtain, and is altogether independent of the total return which he receives for this labor. Our formula shows that the rate of interest will be greater as the whole produce Ft is less, if the advantage of more capital measured by F'(t) remains unchanged. In many ill-governed countries where the land is wretchedly tilled, the average produce is small, and yet the rate of interest is high, simply because the want of security prevents the due supply of capital. Hence more capital is urgently needed, and the price is high. In America and the British colonies, the produce is often high, and yet interest is high, because there is not sufficient capital accumulated to meet all the demands. In England and other old countries the rate of interest is generally lower, because there is an abundance of capital and the urgent need of more is not actually felt. I conceive that the returns to capital and labor are independent of each other. If the soil yields little and capital will not make it yield more, then both wages and interest will be low, provided that the capital is not attracted away to more profitable employment. If the soil yields much and the capital will make it yield more, then both wages and interest will be high. If the soil yields much and capital will not make it yield more, then wages will be high and interest low, unless the capital finds other investments. But the subject is much complicated by the interference of rent. When we speak of the soil yielding much, we must distinguish between the whole yield and the final rate of yield. In the western states of America the land yields a large total, and all at a high final rate, so that the laborer enjoys the result. In England there is a large total yield, but a small final yield, so that the landowner receives a large rent and the laborer small wages. The more fertile land, having here been long in cultivation, the wages of the laborer are measured by what he can earn by cultivating sterile land, which it only just pays to take into cultivation.